Hello there YouTube, it's your boy B3, back with another kicking, you guessed it, graphic novel review. Today we are looking at Saga of the Swamp Thing, Book 3 by Alan Moore and team. Let me read you the back of the book. The pain cannot be buried and forgotten. The pain cannot remain in the past or hidden beneath the soil. That which is buried is not gone. That which is planted will grow. From 1983 through 1987, a young British writer named Alan Moore revolutionized the American comic book. His groundbreaking tenure on DC Comics' Swamp Thing set new standards for graphic storytelling and touched off a revolution in the medium that is still expanding today. Building on the title's framework of gothic horror with a remarkably intuitive narrative style and an unprecedented depth of characterization, Moore's vision was realized through the hauntingly beautiful artwork of such collaborators as Stephen Bissette, John Totleben, Stan Walk, and Rick Veitch. The result is one of comics' most enduring masterpieces. This third of 6 volumes collects Moore's entire run, including, specifically in this one, issues 35 through 42 of Swamp Thing, and also features the first appearance of John Constantine Hellblazer, as well as an introduction by artist Stephen Bissette. And just so you know, this comic is for mature readers. Most of the comics I review are around T for teenish. This one is not. This is definitely a mature reader's book. Anyway, Swamp Thing, one of the greatest comics of all time, and one of my absolute favorite comic characters. So, Swamp Thing and Abby are a thing now. But there's this guy wandering in the swamp now, and he's killing people. He doesn't mean to. He's kind of a homeless guy, and he was in another city, Philadelphia, I believe, where a company dumped a bunch of nuclear waste into a place where a lot of homeless people were camping. Killed most of them, but it mutated this guy. He seems to be able to handle drinking nuclear waste, and pretty much anything he touches just burns away. Just burns away. And we see like one of the guys who kind of was responsible for the dumping feels guilty about it, and he has this like wife that's too good for him, and there's a little kind of subplot there about his guilt and him trying to deflect from his own guilt. But this guy, the one that has been mutated by radiation, Nukeface, is looking for more nuclear waste because this Philadelphia company, didn't really have any real consequences, just like the real world. And now, guess where they're dumping nuclear waste? In Swamp Thing's swamp. Yeah, and he goes looking for it. He kind of accidentally destroys Swamp Thing's body, and Swamp Thing has to grow a new body. And it's his first time doing it, so it takes a long time. As it goes on, he'll learn to do it really quickly, which is great. Very good. But yeah, Nukeface is kind of accidentally killing people and whatnot. And Swamp Thing doesn't really, quote-unquote, defeat him. He just kind of moves on to the next city while Swamp Thing is regrowing, because he's kind of a metaphorical consequence of dumping nuclear waste. Yeah, he's the consequence of nuclear waste, He's the fallout. But Swamp Thing never kind of beats him. He just moves on to the next city. Swamp Thing doesn't actually do anything about him. But yeah, his body is growing. Abigail is helping him out, trying to preserve him. Also, I didn't realize John Constantine's first appearance was in Swamp Thing. Actually, I think I've heard that before. I just completely forgot it. I think because in a lot of ways he's overshadowed Swamp Thing, which I disagree with. I think Swamp Thing is much more interesting, at least to me. I still like reading John Constantine Hellblazer, but anyway, Constantine's trying to figure out what's coming. There's some kind of dark being on the way, and no one can really agree what it is. Some think it's the devil, some think it's Cthulhu, etc., etc. But he wants to stop it, no matter what it is. And one of his friends gets killed by this mysterious thing, and he goes to Abigail and Swamp Thing to try to enlist their help, and he kind of sort of extorts Swamp Thing in a way. He's like, I have information, I know what you are, and you're not developing quickly enough, and I can give you all this information. And he kind of strings Swamp Thing along to get Swamp Thing to kind of help him defeat these creatures. Oddly enough, like most heroes in the DC universe, when asked for help, would probably just do it. Like, if John Constantine went to Superman and he was like, hey, I need help with this threat, Superman would have been like, alright, let's do it, let's get it. Batman might have been a bit more skeptical of John Constantine, but Swamp Thing kind of likes to keep to his own. He kind of doesn't like to leave his swamp. So to get Swamp Thing's help, I mean, Swamp Thing's not a normal hero, you know? I wouldn't even call this a superhero book, to be completely honest with you. You know, Constantine kind of does have to drag him along. And then, you know, there was a village of vampires that Swamp Thing flooded forever ago, and the running water destroyed them. But it kind of dammed up, and some of the ones that were protected from the water now live underwater. And I actually love this story because, like, vampires who don't have to breathe or anything and can't be out in the sun, for vampires to have an underwater society makes so much sense. Oh my god. Because they're protected from the sun down there, and they can kind of move around freely. When people get in the water, they can just drag them down and feed on them. It's kind of wild. This is incredibly clever. Incredibly clever. And it turns out a real weakness of vampires is actually oxygen. So when a stake penetrates a vampire's heart, it's not because the heart is being destroyed. That's not what hurts them, because they're undead. It's the oxygen entering their system and tearing them up inside. The sudden, like, rush of oxygen, because they don't breathe or anything. It's actually very clever. And since water, because, you know, running water, like, vampires can't cross running water, blah, blah, blah. The running water destroys them because water is largely composed of, you guessed it, folks, oxygen. Yeah, so Swamp Thing has to fight these vampires, and the vampires also have this brood. They've now made these new vampires via breeding, something vampires have never really been able to do before. And these kind of creature from the Black Lagoon-esque trench-like vampires hatch from these eggs, and they all consume each other, and the one that's left is the most powerful. And Swamp Thing gets to fight it. It is a horrific creature, but I really love its design because the fins on its arms also kind of look like bat wings. It's very, very interesting, but we also see, like, the townsfolk fighting back against vampires as well. And Constantine says that since people survive the vampires, that actually makes this dark force that is coming stronger. Horrible negativity and believing in the supernatural in the world, as that goes up, that being becomes more powerful. And that being will be revealed in the next volume, I believe, which I have read. But yeah, Swamp Thing starts to kind of tap into his real power and is able to make the water flow again in a way that I won't completely reveal to you. But yes, he does start learning how to form his body much quicker, which is great. And then the next story is about a woman on her period, and she becomes an elemental like Swamp Thing. You see, there's a lot of stigma about periods. They're a perfectly normal, natural thing. Yeah, it sucks to have one. They hurt and shit. But, like, what the heck? It's a natural biological function. It's no different than, like, any other way that the human body gets rid of waste, you know? It's natural. We just have to get that old egg stuff out of there, you know? But this woman, she's on her period. She's having a rough time. Her husband treats her like shit. Society treats her like shit. And the new house she lives in is in a place where there used to be this hut where this tribe of people would put women when they were on their periods to like wait out their period, and they would torture them in there because they thought it was a horrible, horrible curse. But all of this horrible resentment from women of the past and the present, the way they've been treated by men because of their periods, causes her to turn into this werewolf-esque creature with a very cool transformation. And she is an elemental like Swamp Thing. She exists for a reason. And Swamp Thing kind of knows he doesn't have a right to stop her, but she doesn't want to like actually hurt anybody. It's just this resentment has built up to a boiling point. You know, women can't take it anymore, and it's all being expressed through this one specific woman. She holds back from killing her husband. She does not do it. She kind of goes on a rampage trying to force Swamp Thing to kill her, but he won't do it. So she takes care of it herself in a way that was foreshadowed in a very cool way. And then, like, Swamp Thing, you know, takes her body and, you know, tries to respect her and stuff. And then people think, like, oh, there's a swamp monster that killed her, which, of course, makes the dark power that's on the way stronger. And then the next cover art is like a voodoo doll, but the voodoo doll's Swamp Thing, and it's actually a really cool cover. But next, there's this southern plantation with a very dark history. So there was a slave-owning couple that lived there, and the woman invited a male slave in the house and kind of came on to him. And the husband caught them, and he dragged them down to, like, the cellar, and he had this poor slave man flayed and skinned to kind of, you know, teach his wife a lesson because he forced her to watch, and also because he's just a horrible, evil, racist guy. But now there's this production of, like, this soap opera that takes place during that time, and the actors, a lot of them aren't super keen on it, like, and a lot of the stuff in this soap opera actually mirrors history, even though the writers and stuff don't fully realize it. And they're filming this on location in that same old house. Yeah, and then there's like one of the actors, the one that plays the slave owner. He's like this liberal guy who's always trying to overcompensate and doing his best to look not racist because he's, you know, insecure. And like the black actors like roll their eyes every time he like tries to sound like super woke. And then one of the other leads who plays the wife is just a full-on bigot. Like, she is really racist, so she's kind of the opposite of the woman she's portraying, and the male actor is trying to be the opposite of the guy he's portraying. And then, of course, there is a black man who has to play the slave, and he doesn't like the idea of playing a slave. He just kind of really needs the work, which you can understand, I'm sure. But obviously this place is full of fucking ghosts, right? Like, shit like that doesn't happen and not leave ghosts behind. So the ghosts kind of end up possessing these people and making history replay itself over and over and over. Even the extras on set, all possessed. History repeating itself over and over and over. And Swamp Thing tries to do something to cut into it and make it stop. Just stop repeating itself. They tried to bury the past. They didn't want anyone to know about it. And now the past is becoming unburied. Literally, the corpses that experienced this event are crawling up out of the ground and making their way to the plantation home to demand freedom. It's wild. It's wild. It's a crazy story with incredible art. The art throughout this entire run it's like perfect. It's insane. Really and truly. And the paneling in this book really set a standard, not just for the paneling of Swamp Thing for all future runs, but for the paneling of comics. Like, there's some insane, crazy paneling in this. Like, you really, I can't even describe it. How amazing the paneling and art just flows. It just flows so incredibly. And that's the book. This one's a bunch of smaller stories strung together instead of a much bigger story. But wow, what an incredible tale. I cannot wait to do the next volume. It's really great. I might try to do a little more Hulk first. I've been reading a lot of Swamp Thing and a lot of Hulk, a lot of monstrous kind of heroes recently, which is pretty on brand for me. I also want to read some like Carnage and more Hellboy stuff down the road. But that's it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the links in the description below, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.